Europe must keep up the pressure on Russia, says the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
Trump says all Afghans who arrived in the U.S. under the Biden administration will be re-examined after 2 National Guardsmen were shot near the White House.
Firefighting and rescue missions continued into Thursday after a fire at a Hong Kong apartment complex killed at least 55 people.
U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker has suggested that Germany should eventually take over the alliance's top military role, signaling a potential shift in American leadership.
Europe must keep the pressure on Russia. The tone used on Wednesday by the President of the European Commission was determined. Speaking before the European Parliament, Ursula von der Leyen emphasized that Moscow's objective has not changed since the start of the invasion of Ukraine.
Russia's playbook has not changed. From the start, Russia has always believed that they can outlast Ukraine, Europe, and all of its allies. And it is why every time there is serious progress towards negotiations that can bring about a real peace, the violence escalates. We have seen this before. This is a pattern. And the noises from the Kremlin in the last few days say a lot about its real intentions.
Europe has been working for several days to rebalance the 28-point peace plan initially proposed by the United States without consulting its allies. But the European effort has confirmed one essential idea.
One principle has been accepted. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, nothing about Europe without Europe, nothing about NATO without NATO.
To provide financial support to Ukraine, Ursula von der Leyen reminded the House that she had proposed 3 options and made no secret of her preference for the reparation loan, which involves using frozen Russian assets valued at 210 billion euros in the EU.
2 U.S. National Guard troops were shot and critically injured in Washington, D.C. late on Wednesday, roughly 2 blocks from the White House, in what officials say was a targeted attack. The soldiers were deployed by U.S. President Donald Trump as he mobilized Guard troops from the state of West Virginia. Authorities have apprehended a 29-year-old Afghan national who arrived to the U.S. in September 2021 under former President Joe Biden. In fiery remarks, Trump said all Afghans who entered the country under the Biden administration will be re-examined and potentially removed, with the same applying to foreigners whom he said do not belong in the U.S.
We're not going to put up with these kind of assaults on law and order by people who shouldn't even be in our country. We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them. America will never bend and never yield in the face of terror.
Trump announced that he had ordered Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to deploy an additional 500 National Guardsmen to Washington to bolster security. There are currently around 2,200 National Guard troops deployed to the U.S. Capitol from several states. Trump has vowed to further crack down on immigration following this incident, which he described as, quote, the single greatest national security threat.
Firefighters are battling one of Hong Kong's deadliest modern blazes for a second day on Thursday, fighting to control the fire that blackened several high-rise towers and killed at least 55 people. The fire that started on Wednesday afternoon had spread across 7 of the complex's 8 buildings. The city's fire services said that the blazes in 4 of the towers were under control by Thursday morning. 700 people were evacuated from the buildings, but hundreds remained missing on Thursday morning as firefighters continued rescue efforts. Authorities suspected some materials on the exterior walls of the high-rise buildings did not meet fire resistance standards, allowing the unusually fast spread of the fire. 3 men, the directors and an engineering consultant of a construction company, were arrested in connection with the fires and are being investigated for manslaughter.
US Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker has suggested that Germany should eventually take over the alliance's top military role, signaling a potential shift in American leadership. Whitaker said he looks forward to the day Germany says it's ready to take over the Supreme Allied Commander position, known as SACEUR. He acknowledged this is a long-term aspirational goal, but emphasized that Washington wants European military capabilities to equal those of the US. Traditionally, the SACEUR role has always been held by a US general commanding both NATO forces and American troops in Europe. However, a German expert told Euronews that a European commander would no longer have authority over US troops, complicating the dual-headed nature of the role. Whitaker's comment comes amid fears of a US retreat from European security, highlighted by a proposed peace plan for Ukraine that is seen as yet another sign of Washington stepping back from its leadership role in NATO.
Over 18,700 Russians, Moldovans, and Ukrainians have been granted fictitious residences in Romania, according to the prosecutor's office. Among them are Russians suspected of having been army officers or of having business connections to the Kremlin.
Vorbim despre un dosar care vizează infracțiunile de fals informatic comis de către funcționari publici din Suceava, respectiv uz de fals și complicitate la fals informatic de către beneficiarii documentelor de identitate.
In the most serious case, fictitious residences in the names of 10,000 citizens from Russia, Ukraine, and Moldova were discovered in a city in Romania's northeast last November. To obtain a Romanian identity document, a foreigner needs a citizenship certificate issued by the National Citizenship Authority and a birth certificate translated into Romanian, or a marriage certificate. Procedures for the latter were also carried out in Bucharest.
Exista un val de solicitări care efectiv aproape că blocau instituția.
Foreign citizens often never even arrived in Romania, according to sources involved in the investigation. They received their identity cards through intermediaries. Several officials and even former employees of the Ministry of the Interior are under investigation or have been brought to trial for allowing citizens of Russia, Ukraine, and Moldova to obtain Romanian identity documents that gave them access to the Schengen area.
EU migration policies are failing to protect children and are worsening the harm they face along routes from Sudan to Europe, according to a report published on Wednesday by the NGO Save the Children. The report focused on routes between Sudan and Egypt, Libya and Greece, as well as on the Balkans routes. The organization reported that all minors interviewed in Libya experienced severe violence, sexual exploitation, extortion, and long-term detention. In Greece, children reported that they were forced to sail boats in Libya to then being prosecuted as traffickers by Greek authorities. Similar situations were found in the Western Balkans, where 1 in 5 refugees and migrants hurt by the organization experienced violent illegal pushbacks by border police. The NGO said the EU's increase in border management and anti-smuggling support for third countries, whilst cutting humanitarian budgets, increases these risks for children.
France's top court has rejected former French President Nicolas Sarkozy's last appeal in the big Malian case, making a final ruling on his sentence for the illegal financing of his failed 2012 presidential campaign. But even though a 6-month prison sentence has been confirmed, the former president is unlikely to go back to jail. Instead, it's more likely that he will serve this sentence under some sort of partial house arrest or with an electronic bracelet, and that will be up to the judge to decide in the coming weeks. But this ruling adds to Sarkozy's long list of legal battles. In September, he was found guilty of criminal conspiracy for allowing his campaign managers to seek illegal funding from the late Libyan dictator Gaddafi for his 2007 presidential campaign. This marked the first time in French modern history that a former head of state actually went to prison. But after 3 weeks, he was released and is now preparing to appeal this case next year. But this is not the first time that the top court has rejected Sarkozy's last appeal. In a separate case in December last year, the court made his conviction final for trying to bribe a judge in exchange for information. Subsequently, Sarkozy had to wear an electronic bracelet from February to May of this year. And for now, his legal battles show no signs of slowing down, keeping the former president firmly in the spotlight.
A Turkish-German family of 4 who died while on holiday in Istanbul were likely killed from phosphine gas from a pesticide. According to a preliminary autopsy report, it had been used to treat a bug infestation in their hotel and was found in various parts of the hotel room. The Bojek family went to hospital on the 12th of November with vomiting and nausea and were discharged after receiving treatment. But the next day, they fell ill again and their condition was treated as an emergency. The children, aged 6 and 3, died that day, while the mother died on November the 14th and their father died on the 17th. 2 other tourists also staying at the hotel were hospitalized and the hotel has been closed.